Hi, welcome to Yoga Therapy for Hip and Low Back Pain. I hope this class will educate you and give you some tools to deal with any sense of pain or uncomfortable sensation within your asana classes. With low back pain, it's not one size fits all. Some movements would be healing for certain back injuries and then contraindicated for others. So within a lot of the asanas today, I'll give you two choices, and I want you to explore and see what feels better. For class, you'll need a belt, 2 blocks, and 2 blankets. If you don't have 2 blankets, you can have a pillow and a beach towel. If you have a bolster, great. If not, don't worry about it. You can use one of your blankets. Okay. So speaking of props, there's a little bit of setup we need. So grabbing one yoga blanket or a beach towel, open it up, and we're going to fold it into a long roll. So not a bolster roll. This long, skinnier version of the roll. So once again, a beach towel would work just fine. And then put that to the side. We'll need it later. And for your yoga belt, we're going to have to make a loop in the belt. So if you have a yoga belt, you probably know how to make the loop. If you don't have a yoga belt, we can just tie any belt into a knot the size we need. So first, go ahead and make a buckle in your belt. If you have the classic yoga belt, we usually go underneath both of the D-rings and then back up and under the second. Okay, we want this belt to be as wide as our frontal hip bones. You may not have ever thought about these bones. If you take my class, I talk about them all the time. So these frontal hip bones, they're like little dresser drawer knobs. That's how wide I want this belt. Okay, and once again, it needs to be taut. And then put that to the side. We'll start laying down. So if you have a bolster, you can place the bolster underneath your knees. If you don't, you can use the blanket roll or really any pillow you have. But everything else can move out of your way. So pillow if you want one, bolster if you have it, and let's lay back. You can also keep your knees bent if you don't have a bolster. You could just have your feet planted and your knees bent. So we'll settle with a little pranayama, some breath practice. Just go ahead and either gaze at the ceiling or let your eyes softly close. Bring your awareness to your breath. Perhaps there's some wiggling or adjusting you might need to get a little more comfortable. Maybe taking the shoulder blades down the back, wiggling the jaw, or slightly taking the sit bones towards the heels. Then on your next inhale, hold your breath at the top. Almost like a vase. You could fill up to the very rim and then slowly pour your breath out. So we'll take this Kumbhaka pranayama, this vase breath. Again, as you're ready, inhale and hold your breath for a moment or two. And slowly drain your breath out as you exhale. Let's do this a few times on your own rhythm. A holding full inhale, slow exhale. There's many breath techniques if you want to breathe exclusively in and out of your nose. It's great. You might inhale through your nose, exhale out your mouth. Take one more, this Kumbhaka pranayama. Then feel free to move into just any normal breath. If holding the breath keeps you present, you could keep this technique. So stretch your arms over your head for a moment. Draw the tailbone down. Just a good morning stretch. Take the arms down, and if you have that bolster underneath your knees, go ahead and move that bolster out of your way. And grab your rolled up blanket. Place the rolled up blanket underneath the back of your hips. So not your low back, not that little curve, but even lower at your hips. Then pick one knee up and just sway the foot side to side. So the knee goes in, the foot goes out. Yeah, very small movement. Then take your arms and hug behind your knee, knee to chest pose. Your left leg can stay bent or straight, depends on what feels right for your back. With your right ankle, circle both directions. Place the foot down, switch legs. So pick the left leg up and sway the leg side to side. Then hug knee to chest pose, Apanasana. Right leg can stay bent or straight, and circle your left ankle, both directions. Then hug both knees up into the chest. Take a few breaths, simply letting the thighs melt down towards the ribs. Then release the feet to the floor. Part of keeping our hips and our low back safe is learning how to gently engage the core. So a lot of the cueing I've heard is flat back. I don't want you to make a flat back today. Instead, I want you to think about your torso, your entire core as a canister that could contract in and expand out. So let's try this. We'll use the blanket as some feedback. Go ahead, inhale fully out like a vase. And then exhale, contract in. And as you contract in, it might feel like you're pressing the back of your hips into this blanket. Inhale, expand. You might know these as pelvic tilts. Exhale, contract. So keep practicing these pelvic tilts. And hopefully the focus here isn't on squeezing the glutes to tilt the pelvis, but on keeping the core compact to tilt the pelvis. So that every time we engage in, it almost feels like the low back gets longer instead of flat. Take a few more of these pelvic tilts. If you find yourself squeezing your glutes, nothing wrong with that. Just see if you can invite a little more awareness into the core drawing in. Okay. Windshield wiper your legs a few times. Now, if any time being on your back this long causes you discomfort, you can always roll over to the side, take a quick fetal position. Okay. let's get a little bit more core work going here. So we'll take some dead bugs. So again, hug both knees into the chest. But this time, take your arms straight up. Flex your feet. Take your feet forward and see how far forward you can take your feet while remaining in this pelvic tilt position, this drawing in and down of the core. Knees are still bent. Just depends on how close your knees are to your arms without losing the engagement of your core. Now you could hold here. You could even relax and re-engage. Or go ahead and add a little bit more difficulty by taking the left leg down, the right arm overhead, returning to center. I like to inhale, extend. Exhale, return to center. Good. Dead bugs. Or once again, you could bend the knees in and then move them out. Just ask yourself where you can maintain this hugging in of your core. Let's do 4 more. So it'll really be like 2 on each side. Here's 3. And 1 more. And then place your feet down on the ground. Now, you'll know if your core wasn't hugging you because you'll feel it in your low back. So just for a moment, let's roll over to one side. Take a little fetal position with this blanket in your side waist. And then take the other side. You scoot down a little bit so the blanket's at your waist. And then come back to center. Pick your hips up, slide the blanket out. And now take the blanket in your your thigh crease, so that it's in between your thigh and your hip. And then do the same knee to chest pose. Now, for some of us, this will feel like a relief. For some of us, it'll just feel like there's a blanket in your belly. And then slide the blanket over to the left hip crease. With this hip and low back pain, not every variation will speak to you. Take the blanket between both, hug up. So some of us, the pelvic tilts felt amazing on our low back. Others, this will feel amazing. Take a few more breaths. And then release the feet down and move the blanket roll out of your way. All right, grab your belt. Hopefully it has that loop that we set up. And we're going to loop our legs together. So picking the legs up, sliding the belt. And then hopefully the belt will land maybe an inch and a half below your knees. If it's too wide or too narrow, adjust. Then flex the feet. If the legs are not comfortable straightening, the legs can be slightly bent, right? And now we're going to work our core out. So before I talked about expanding versus contracting, we're going to use the legs to work on this outward expansion. So just find your breath for a moment. And then next time that you inhale, expand, also imagine pulling your legs apart. And then exhale, release. Inhale, expand. Brace your core out. And exhale, relax. So you can keep doing that. Inhale out, exhale, relax. Or we could flip it. And we could do exhale out, belly down. And then we could do inhale, relax. So explore. Even something like the breath is going to affect your core, your low back, and your hips in different ways. Even if you held your breath, you would still be getting the effect about drawing the legs together. It's helping your very low back, your SI joint. In fact, we usually call this SI joint reset. So do one more. Go out and then release down. Let's do the same thing, side lying. So take one arm over the ear, roll to your side. Now, over the years, I've tried different ways to make this the most comfortable. It's really going to depend on you, but you might want to fold your blanket up one more time and then lay down on the shoulder like this. There's fancy ways to do it too. If you know a different way, go ahead. Take 3 pillows under you. Bend the knees and take the palms together. You're in a very tiny fetal position. And then slightly contract the core, the belly back. Stack the hips. You might even slide your top hip forward. Then we're going to do the same thing that we just did. You're going to take your leg up and pull the belt apart. And then relax. Explore your breath. You could inhale, pull the belt apart. Exhale, relax. Or you could flip that. You could exhale, pull the belly apart. And relax. The belly, don't pull your belly apart. Pull the belt apart. Relax. One more time. Hopefully you feel your outer hips talking to you. And relax. Now, before we switch sides, come up and slip your top leg out of the belt. If it's comfortable for you, straighten the legs. If not, you can stay in the fetal position. If this is too much on your side hip, scoot the blanket underneath your hip. Okay. So flex the feet and imagine yourself standing up and that you just slowly tipped over on your side, but your ear, your shoulder, your hip, and your heels are all in a straight line like mountain pose. Then hug the navel back, sit bones down, and like you're moving through some very thick water, press your top leg up, give it some resistance, and then squeeze it down. Good. Do 3 more like this. Keep the navel in. Keep the tailbone long. So your outer hip muscles should be illuminating. And knowing that your outer hip muscles can protect your hips and your low back. All right. Switching sides. Go ahead, pick yourself up. Bend your knees. And we'll slide to the other side. If you had a blanket under your head, take it to the other side. Especially with yoga therapy, you want to figure out how to make yourself comfortable. This is not, no pain, no gain. This is no pain. No pain. All right, same thing, lying down. And you have both legs in the belt, knees tucked, fetal position. Slide that top hip slightly forward, hug the core in, and then pull the belt apart. And release. And pull the belt apart. You're giving it a lot of resistance. Pull. Release. And last one. Pull the belt apart. Release. Free your top leg. And try to find this long line. Sometimes I lay on my arm to give myself a really long line. It just might not be the most comfortable position for your neck, but you could give it a try if this makes you feel like you are in a longer line. Legs can be bent or straight. Take the sit bones down. Hug the core in like you're resisting. Take the top leg up. Resist it on its way back down. In Sanskrit terms, we could call this modified Anatasana, Lord Vishnu's pose. Take 2 more. And then peel yourself up. Let's find our way to hands and knees. So slip the belt off. You can put the belt out of your way for now. And find your way to a hands and knees position. If your knees are sensitive, mine are, you might want to put a blanket or a towel under your knees. If your wrists are sensitive, you can use 2 blocks and place the 2 blocks underneath your forearms. No pain, no pain. Moving into some spinal segmentation. It's a lot like cat and cow. So most of us know cat and cow, right? On the inhale, you expand, belly drops. And then you round, the navel draws up. All right, what if we could just do that in one zone of our spine at a time? So long spine, core slightly in. Just segment your tailbone. So lift your tailbone up and then draw it under you. And see if you could keep everything else really steady. Shoulders, your arms, your neck. And then let this wave of movement move into the low back. So tilt the tail and let the low back drop down. Then draw the navel in, round up. Try that a few times. Then moving into the upper back. So now the wave is tailbone, low back, upper back, but the neck tries to stay out of it. Oh, see, it's hard for me not to move my neck. If you've always done the classic cat and cow, the spinal segmentation can be a little more challenging because you're isolating. For a lot of us, the upper back and shoulders are tight. Okay, now get the neck involved and it'll feel like a complete cat and cow. Then if we had all the time available to us, we'd go backwards, just moving the neck, just the upper back, just mid back, just low back. If you want to pause and rewind and go from top to bottom, isolating, please feel free and pause now. If not, let's move on. Taking a little bit more strength. So go ahead, everybody grab your blocks and place your blocks under your forearms like I just had them. You want to be shoulder width, matching up your bone stacking. Looking straight down so your neck is long. Hug the core in. Take your right toes back, tuck them under you, and give yourself calf muscle stretch. Then lift the foot up so it's right behind the glute in midair. And notice if that made your low back dip down. So hug the core in, almost like earlier when we had that blanket roll at the tailbone, like you could press up into the blanket roll. Then either stay here if this is enough balance or take your left arm forward. 2 breaths, opposite arm and leg pose. Outer hips are firm. And come on down. Switch sides. Left toes back, calf muscle stretch. Then draw the side waist in. Lift the leg up so the core engages. Right arm forward in a handshake position. Trying to fill up into that dip in the low back. One more inhale. Exhale. Come on down. Rise up to your shins, so no need to sit back on your heels. Interlace your fingers. Flip the interlaced palms and take your arms up any amount. We're not really focusing on shoulder pain today, but if there's shoulder pain, you stop anywhere you would like to as you reach the arms overhead. Send the tailbone down, hug the side waist in. And reach the arms up, take the arms out and down. One more time, hands in front of you. Interlace your non-habitual finger on top. It'll feel a little bit awkward. Flip the palms, same thing. Hug the side waist in, glutes engaged down, stretch the arms overhead. And then take the arms out and down. All right, let's do a little bit more kneeling. Grab these blocks, flip them onto the highest setting, and then step your right foot outside of the block. Okay, I'm going to face you now so I can show you. But right foot is outside of the block. Then I want you to gently draw your right leg into your arm and your arm into your leg, kind of like you're making a little vice grip, okay? I'm going to scoop my blanket back. So here we go. You're going to grip, press arm into leg, leg into arm, and then relax. And again, grip, like there was a $100 bill right here. You had to hold on to it. Relax, hold. Okay, now for some of us, this will feel really amazing in the left inner thigh. So you might want to just hold here and grip. Or maybe a little movement will feel better. You could inhale, shift the hips forward. And exhale, shift the hips back, moving the front leg towards straight. So explore, either take this dynamic movement or keep playing with this little hug. My SI joint loves this hug. I could just keep doing this. Do one more round of whatever you are doing. And then we will switch sides. Take the right foot back. Bring the left forward. Set yourself up so that you can press your arm into your leg into your arm. I'm going to move forward a tiny bit. And then go ahead and press. Arm into leg, leg into arm. And release. So once again, if your inner hip is tight, you're probably getting a really nice sensation. Squeeze. Release. Arm into leg, leg into arm, squeeze. You can stay here. Or you can inhale, shift hip forward. And exhale, take the left leg towards straight, left buttock back. Pair your breath with your movement. One more of whatever version you're doing. And then release. Let's do one more kneeling pose. So, take your right leg out to the right. Bring your hands to your hips. Turn your whole right leg, your right foot, your right shin open to the right. I like to have a heel to knee alignment. So if possible, like you could draw a line from your left knee to your right heel. And then once again, if you have some inner hip issues, you should feel just an appropriate stretch here. You could engage your right glutes, firming the buttock underneath you to get more sensation. Then grow up tall through the spine. Very gently lean your right forearm onto your right thigh. And then take your left arm over your ear. Modified gate pose. Now to keep this from jamming into your low back, hug the cylinder of the core in. It's the same thing that we learned at the beginning of the class. It's just sideways, so it feels a little different. You might feel like your ribs need to come in and down. And then to come out, press your feet down, reach your arm up, get super tall, and then release. If you want to use blocks to switch legs. I love this practice. Okay, here we go. Other side. If possible, have a knee to heel alignment. Okay, the whole leg turns under you. I'm already getting a sensation of space and stretch here. If you're not, engage the left buttock. Gently leaning to the left, ribs knitting in, trace your right arm over your ear. Modified Parigasana gate pose. So many modifications and variations in yoga. Find what works for you. Explore. Exploring in a pain-free range of motion. Press the feet down. Reach the arm up. And come on out. If you need your blocks to come on out, please do. Now, take one more round of cat and cow, or if you want to explore just segmenting certain parts of your spine that feel stuck, then do that. So hands and knees, cat and cow breaths, or any variation. One variation could be side to side, stretching the side body. You could barrel roll. Okay. The most therapeutic pose that I know might not seem like a yoga therapy pose, but moving into forearm plank. The number one, the best yoga therapy pose. So, lower to your forearms. Interlace your fingers for more stability. Have your elbows under your shoulders. Slightly roll your elbows back, right? They can't go anywhere because you're on a sticky mat. Hug the core in. Step the pads of both toes back. Now, if this is too much, knees can go down, but hug the core in. Like we practiced at the beginning of class, you might feel like you could press your low back up into an imaginary blanket roll. Let's hold for 5 more breaths. You can firm your glutes, navel to spine. Drag the elbows to the toes to the elbows. Just give yourself one more inhale, and then exhale. Gently lower down to your belly. Crawl down and bring your fingertips into cobra pose. So instead of having the palms flat, fingertips right outside the ribs. If you don't need this blanket, if your hips are not sensitive, you can get rid of it. It's up to you. Take the shoulders out of the ears. Hug the outer arms in, but keep the neck long. So sometimes when we do back extensions, the neck comes up. Keep the neck long. And then it's just the same pelvic tilts. We're going to inhale. Exhale, draw your core in, slide your glutes down to your heels. And then inhale, relax. It doesn't even feel like a back bend. Exhale, hug the core, engage the glutes down to the heels. Inhale, relax. One more time. Slide the glutes down. Then this time, if you wanted to add a little more back extension, press your feet into the floor, the toenail bends. Keep the glutes down. And then you could play with crawling the back ribs away from the back waist, but keep the glutes down, the low back long. Inhale. Exhale, come on down. Now, some back injuries, back extensions just never feel that good. So 2 options here. Either turn your head and look to one side if you're fine being here, or if that back extension was a little too much, you might want to slide back and give yourself some flexion in child's pose. If it bothers your knees, sit on a block or blanket could go behind your knee joint. Now, if you're looking one direction, please turn your head and look the opposite direction. All right. We're going to try one more prone back extension here. If that last one wasn't for you, if you know your doctor's told you back bends are worse for your injury, then I'm going to give you some core work. So once again, 2 options, and you might even pause and try both. First would be some prone core work. We would take this blanket roll. It's just more pelvic tilts. Secret. A lot of back and hip injuries are just going to love pelvic tilts. So you would take this right under your belly button or a little lower if it's uncomfortable. Your head could look side to side or forehead could be center. You'd firm the thighs and you just do your pelvic tilts, okay? But some of us might want to play with this back extension. If you've never tried it, it's called Vimanasana. It's unique because you're going to take your legs out to the sides while you do a back extension. So the annoying part is getting that belt back around your legs. So you might mermaid your legs around and put on the belt. I notice my belt slipping. Sometimes if the belt isn't exactly center, then it doesn't want to work. So readjust. Okay, and then everyone meet me on the belly, whichever version you're going to take. If you've never tried this version, you might try. Okay, the setup is the same no matter what you're doing. Feet down, thighs firm, glutes down. Choose a position for your head, either straight down or look to one side. Then continue with your pelvic tilts, or as you tilt the pelvis, you lift the legs up and you pull the belt apart, just like we did earlier. And then you come down and relax. Glutes engage down, belly in. It's almost like you're going to spin your inner thighs up as you pull the belt apart. Come down. Try 1 or 2 more. This time really exaggerate and turn your toes in like you're pigeon toeing. And then come on down. If you looked one direction, look the other. If not, just take a prone shavasana. Rest your head on your hands. Take your vase breath like you could breathe out and up into your low back. All right, crawl or press yourself up enough that if you have that belt, you can free your legs. If you don't have your belt, don't worry about it. We're all going to find our way onto our back. Keep your belt and your block handy, because in a moment we'll do another exploration. So if you tend to have a pillow under your head, don't have one for now. Just for now. I know some of us really want it there. Take the heels of your hands to the creases of the hips. I'm going to do a little self-traction with vase breath. So inhale, full vase breath. Hold it at the top. Exhale, hug the core in and down. Pour the breath out. And this time, use your hands to traction your legs away from your hips and low back. You're actually pressing. And then relax. Inhale your vase breath. Exhale, hug the core in. There's a slight pelvic tilt, you traction. One more time, inhale. All the breath out as you traction, belly down, legs away from you. Same thing, but we're going to do this with your right crossed over your left. Inhale. Exhale, traction. Now, keep the feeling of the traction. But bring your arms into these robot arms. So elbows are bent, outer arms are down. I don't care what kind of breath you use, but tilt the pelvis and lift your pelvis off the floor. So marrying our traction and our bridge. Take an inhale wherever you are. Exhale, come down. Now you might have felt a little bonus hamstring strength. Don't be scared of that. Okay. Cross your left over your right. Hands to hip creases. We'll traction. Inhale. Exhale, traction, belly down. And then lift your pelvis up. Take your arms, root them down to support you. Maybe you lift one more inch. Take an inhale. Exhale. Slowly roll down. Take that foot down. Let's get both hamstrings. Imagine you could drag both heels back towards your sit bones. Once again, you can't because you're on a sticky mat, right? But imagine you could drag the heels back. And hopefully your legs engage just by doing that. Take an inhale. Exhale, hug the core. Keep dragging the legs back. Just lift the pelvis a millimeter off the floor. And come down. Try again. Inhale. Exhale, engage your heels back towards your buttocks. Hug the core. Lift the hips a millimeter off the floor. And come back down. All right, one more final exploration in this posture. I want you to explore here. You're either going to use the belt or a block. We've done a lot of belt work, so let's start with the block work. So, finding your block. You're going to place the block in between your inner thighs. Some of us, our back really loves this feeling. Some of us have done this a lot. If you've taken yoga, this is very, very popular. So you might have done this a lot in your life. But here we go, bridge pose. Press down through your outer arms. You can also grab your mat if that helps you widen your chest. Inhale. Exhale, drag the heels back. Hug the core in, pick your hips up. Now you're welcome to stay this low or come into a bigger extension. Glutes are reaching towards the back of the knees. However, if when you're doing this, it goes into your knees, it goes into your low back, come down. You might be a belt person. So if you're doing the block, I invite you to come in and out a few times, maybe 5 breaths as you hold. But if right away you squeeze the block and you're like, oh, this isn't for me, same thing can happen with the belt, okay? It's the same exact thing. Heels back, core in, and you come up. So do a few more. Now, if neither of these are for you, if you're like, this is way too much back extension for me, there is a third option. You could take the block under your hips and rest for a few breaths in supported bridge. So I'm going to give us about 60 more seconds to explore. If you've never tried the bridge pose with a belt, give it a try. You might love it. It's really depending on what muscles in your body are tight and which ones are weak. And finding a good balance. Do your legs like to press out? Do they like to press in? Do your knees like to come up? Or do you prefer these extensions? So discovery. All right, just about 20 more seconds here. And then wherever you are, slowly lower your back down onto the floor. Okay, roll over to one side. If you like a pillow under your head, go ahead and grab that pillow or blanket. other props can move out of your way for now. We're again going to lay on our side. So find a comfy fetal position and take your arms forward. I'm going to scoot back in case you can't see me with my camera angle. Okay, just a tiny bit of shoulders. Take the top arm up and circle the wrist. And then circle your whole arm in a pain-free range. So if there's pinching when you go above your head, just make the circle a little smaller. And you start to approach something like a supine twist. So let your body go with that. This can be nice and slow, switch directions. Let this also be very messy. A lot of yoga is controlled movement. Let this be feel-good, fluid movement. And then you can roll over to the other side, or you can pick yourself up. Either way, you can just roll right on over. And we'll do the same thing on this side. So you're in a well-tucked fetal position. Take your top arm up, circle your wrist. And then circle your whole shoulder. Again, let it be fluid. Switch directions. And wherever you are, roll onto your back. So for some of us, twisting is contraindicated from our doctor. So if twisting is contraindicated, then you can take a block or even that blanket roll onto your belly and do some windshield wipers without knocking off that block or blanket roll. And you can even hold the windshield wiper on one side. Or if you want more of a twist, then let's go ahead and pick the hips up and scoot the hips over to the right side of your mat. Take your arms like wings or like a cactus. A cactus is a little more stretch. And then bring the knees into the chest, let them fall to the left. If this is still too much sensation, but you want a bigger twist, then take a block, a bolster, anything you have underneath the left leg. Let's switch sides with some stability. So the same core work. Draw the belly in, the core in, squeeze the legs and come up. And place the feet down. Even out your hips. If you're in the windshield wipers, keep holding the windshield wiper side to side. Okay, other side. Pick your hips up, scoot them to the left. Hug the knees into the chest, legs go to the right. If it's too much sensation, place something underneath the right leg. And then coming up with stability, hug the core, legs together, come up. Place the feet down, even out the hips. Let's all hug the knees into the chest, this time crossing the ankles. And then switch. place the feet down onto the floor. One more move for our SI joint, the very, very low back. So either grab your yoga blanket or grab your belt. I realize my belt is so far away. Only when you're doing yoga therapy, it feels like, I don't want to get up and grab this belt. So belt or blanket, and you're going to lasso your feet. Legs could be any amount straight. So you're not using the loop. You're either using the long blanket or your belt. So it's like a jump rope. And then slide your feet out any amount away from each other. Hold for a moment. And then resisting the belt down with your hands, slide the feet back out. I'm going to add a little more resistance and belt this belt around my wrist once. If you have wrist injuries, this might be great so you're not grabbing the belt too much. And one more time, abduct. Take the legs away from each other. It doesn't have to be the world's biggest stretch. Back in. Now just for a second, resist the strap down. So pull the strap down. Knees could be bent or straight. And then release that resistance. This time, resist the feet out as if the belt were still wrapped around your legs. Take the feet out, but don't let them slide. Resist the belt down and around your feet. So you're resisting, but they're not sliding out. And then release. Release your feet. Now, your back is probably talking to you. And this is when you want to respond. What movements does your back want in this moment? Do you want a windshield wiper? Do you want a fetal position ball? Do you want a knees to chest? Do you want a bridge? It's not a one size fits all. All right, then very gently pick yourself up. Grab your blanket or your pillow, whatever you have, and come up to sit just for a moment. Now, sitting can be complicated, especially with hip injuries. So feel free to sit on a couch, sit on a chair. Right out of frame, I have my yoga chair. I love meditating on a yoga chair. Have a sense of the legs and hips heavy. And then the same core that we've been doing, now like the cylinder of our core could get longer, right? Like the volume could rise up and close the eyes. Release the jaw, maybe give it a little wiggle. And then see if there's any movements you might need here in your spine to get a little bit more of that length, to get a little bit more freedom. Then go ahead and take your feet together and your knees apart. If you're on a chair, this could be done with your heels on the edges of the chair or the floor. So like this. And this is something we haven't talked that much about, but I want you to imagine your low back widening as if from your spine, left and right, it could widen and lean forward. And once again, some of us, this will be like, oh, an amazing freedom experience, and some are just leaning forward. Then cross your other leg, your non-habitual leg in front. Lift the cylinder of your core. Take a moment. If you want, you could pause this, set a timer for 5 or 10 minutes, and move into a meditation practice. Maybe your back is feeling that secure. So I invite you to move into a meditation. If not, we'll take Shavasana. In Shavasana, I want you to be comfortable. So, perhaps that pillow under your head. The blanket roll. You could do so much with the blanket roll. You can take the blanket roll under your feet in a bound angle. You could take the blanket roll under your knees. You could take it at your hips. If your back tends to bother you in Shavasana, you definitely want something under your knees. The blanket roll might not be high enough. So of course you could unroll it and then roll it the thick way, or simply grab a pillow or a bolster, or even a couch cushion. I know not everyone has a yoga bolster, but if you think about it, it's just a pillow. So take as many pillows as you need. And wiggle and adjust. If you could even get 5% more comfortable, that would be worth it. Bring your mind's eye again to this concept of a vase. And within the vase, imagine the purest, clearest water. Picture dropping just one ice cube into the vase. And the ripples, the splash of energy that would occur. Think of your own body as an energy center. And imagine ripples within your own body. Ripples of relaxation that could start at your low back and travel evenly out throughout your whole body. Let these ripples take you into a few minutes of Shavasana. If you need more time in Shavasana, please feel free to stop the video now. If you'd like to move on with me, reconnect to your breath, stretch and adjust. Roll into your fetal position. Gently pick yourself up. Consider letting your head be the last thing to come up. Sitting up tall on a blanket or a bolster. Last time, lift through the cylinder, even the crown of the head. Hands to the heart. Finishing with the Sanskrit mantra for peace, the word Shanti, chanted 3 times. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you for your practice. Namaste.